He is my preferred vendor for roofing because he is an amazing human and does really great work. A lot of roofers just want to do complete roof replacements, and that's fine and good. But in general, I love it when a roofer is willing to be a little bit more creative based on people's budget. So he has done a lot of repairs for clients and, just smaller jobs to help people extend the lives of their roofs without having to like do a massive overhaul of their roofs. And I just really appreciate that because, not everybody has 15 or $20,000 to be able to put into the roof right away, and especially after they've just bought a house, it can be a big expense. And so having somebody who's willing to go in and just do like, some sealing of this and maybe replacing a few shingles here and there, and he's done that for quite a few clients, and I just think that that's great. Here we go.
Did we do it?
We did it.
Yeah, I gotta adjust this a little bit. Sorry.
Amazing. No problem.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out.
I honestly think it's like less than a human endeavor. I think that the Instagram live thing isn't like really sussed out that well. That little notification is like very fleeting, so no worries.
And only on certain screens, apparently.
Yes, that
Yeah.
too. So, well, thank you for being here.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I was just telling everybody that the thing that I love about you as a roofer, we've been working together for maybe a year and a half or so. I think you've been like
A little more than that.
my roofer guy. Yeah, maybe even more than that.
Yeah.
Is that I feel like you are unique in that you are a creative roofer. I think a lot of guys come through and they're just like, yeah, you got to rip this off and replace it. Like, we got to do a whole new one. And I feel like you are wonderful to my clients and recognizing that not everybody has that budget, and maybe we want to extend the life of a roof for a little while. And that's just something that I really appreciate about you. So I just wanted to
Well,
say
you're
that.
welcome. I agree. Not everybody has the budget or the need.
Yeah,
So
totally.
give them what they need,
Yes, I love that. And I think that it lends itself to like a good business practice too. Because if you come through and you do like a fix and it lasts them another 4 years, and then you can come back when they're more rich and famous and put a whole new roof on.
Of course. Yeah, it's just job security for the future, right? I mean, if you treat people right.
For sure. So I kind of wanted to start. I realized that though we've been working together a long time, that I really don't know much about you. I don't know like how you started in this business. I don't know how, you started your company and how that's been for you. So I kind of just wanted a little bit of background about your experience with roofs in general and business.
Okay. Yeah. I've been doing it a long time, actually. So I started, as a matter of fact, I started in high school. So I was doing the math on this actually. So it was back about 1998 when I started. And I just had a friend's dad who owned a roofing company, and they were looking for guys to literally just pick up garbage.
Amazing. Perfect.
Yeah. Yep. And so I just picked up the old shingles that the crews had torn off of the roofs, and put them in the dumpster. And that was my whole job. Never got on the roof, really, just on the ground and picking up trash. Yeah. And I did that for 2 years through high school. It paid better than McDonald's. And so that's what I did. and that was where it was at. And so I did that. And then I actually installed for the same company for about 4 years. And I did that full time after high school. And so I was installing roofs on mostly just shingles at the time, asphalt shingles. But that's what I did that for about four or 5 years. And then about halfway through college, I switched over to more of a sales role. Okay. And so for the same company, and did that down in Utah County. I was down at UVSC for school. And so I started doing that. And they were primarily just new construction, turning in, looking at plans and estimating from there, and providing estimates to builders. And so I did that for, I guess I did that about 3 years or so. And then when I graduated from school, that same company actually hired me to work in the office. So there was some changes in there. I mean, I don't want to make it too cut and dry. There was obviously some changes and some different things that happened throughout there with some different change in ownership and whatnot. And so But I worked in the office for about a year, year and a half doing books. And at that time I was kind of doing some sales training and production stuff, just kind of helping with more of the management side of the business. And then it was 2008. And frankly, not to throw anybody under the bus at all, but they made quite a few mistakes for the market. And as you know, as a realtor, 2008 was a rough time for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So they made some pretty significant mistakes and went out of business.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. And so the fact that they were then gone, I kind of found myself without a job. And, I had a college degree, but I didn't have a whole lot of their skills because I'd been working really in roofing almost the whole time. So after I went to a few job interviews and I wasn't able to get a job, different things I have a marketing degree. And so I tried to get out of construction altogether, and it just didn't work out. And so I ended up setting some small goals and started this company in 2009. And mostly it was just kind of a way to pay the bills, and it was something I understood and knew how to do, and I knew I had enough connections to be able to do it. And that was 2009, and here we are.
Here we are. Yeah.
Here we
well,
are.
I think it's great because, and I think it shows in your business, because I had a friend who's, I think, still on this live recently use the term like white collar contractor with the idea that there are people out there that are kind of going out to jobs and they own businesses, but haven't really had their hands in the work. And so I think it really shows with you, the times I've had you out to bid projects and things like that, that you started as a teenager picking up the trash, and then worked your way up, and now you're a business owner. And I think I think it's really important for roofing, and obviously different fields too, when the owner has really been in all the roles. So I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that you appreciate it, because there's a lot of, a lot of our competitors, that's a common trend. We call them paper contractors.
Okay.
But same thing. So it's nothing, basically they just don't have any experience, and they may be able to get a license, or they have a qualifier that is their license, and they really have no hands-on experience, but they're really good at selling.
Mm-hmm.
And so they go and they talk to people. They're good with people. They talk to people. They convince them to buy, and they just don't really have a lot of experience. And so I think it's kind of sad, honestly.
Yeah.
That because it really hurts the market, and people end up with bad work, bad installs, bad quality, bad products,
for sure.
etc.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Let's segue into roofs. So it seems a little bit abstract to kind of just talk about different roofs, but obviously I'm a real estate agent. So when I'm going to houses, we see a variety of different things, from asphalt shingle roofs to, plastic membranes. So why don't you talk a little bit about, did that sound weird? A little bit about the types of roofs that you deal with on a regular basis, and maybe just a really brief overview, which seems impossible potentially, but
I'll try
a
to
brief
keep it
of an
short.
overview of
we're so passionate about roofing here that
what kind of roofs are there out there, and then from there I would really like to transition into roof maintenance. A lot of these kind of interviews for me are for people that already own their houses, already have roofs, and how can they best maintain the roof that they have. So
perfect. Yeah. So by far the most common, of course, in this market, meaning basically Salt Lake City or anywhere surrounding here, by far the most common is asphalt shingles. And so that's what we see and deal with the most. The reason they're the most common is because, frankly, they're probably the best shingle or the best material for our climate. They work really well with both hot temperatures and really cold temperatures. And so that's why you see so much, is because we have that variety of temperature. They expand and contract with the weather. They seal, they work well for what we have. On the other side, they're also the most least expensive. And so when you come to kind of entry level, asphalt shingles, they're going to be the most cost effective as well. Now, you can always spend more money and buy higher quality, but you don't necessarily have to either. Yeah. So that's the most common on any roof that's pitched. The other materials, of course, would be, like a metal roof, of course. There's tiles out there. There's composites. There's, slates and all kinds of stuff.
Can I interject with a question?
Please.
So, if you go down to St. George or some kind of climates that maybe get a little bit hotter or have more sun, you see way more of the kind of tile shingles and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Are they inherently not as good in cold weather? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So tiles you see all over St. George or Phoenix or anywhere that's a warm climate, and that's because they're so good with the heat. And so they react really well with warm weather, hot weather. But if, on a tile, for example, if you end up with like a hairline crack in a tile, an actual concrete tile, and then that gets wet, of course, water gets inside that crack and then it freezes, then it'll break. And that's inherent with any stone type material. So your slates, your tiles, some of your really fancy, very expensive products, but that can happen.
Interesting.
So
that totally makes sense.
Yeah. And then the challenge, of course, is if you have to fix one of those, you have to walk on that roof. And generally what will happen is if one is broken due to ice or something like that, you've got to walk up the roof, and you're in the process of walking up the roof, you'll probably break 5 or 10 more. Stepping on them,
Yeah.
So I don't recommend those roofs in our climate. They've come a long ways. They're not all bad, but I don't necessarily recommend them because of our climate. That's it. Right. So metal is similar in that regard. Metal panels. We do a lot of metal panels. They're becoming very popular because they look really good. Yeah. And they're very contemporary looking. They're clean. They're sleek. They're becoming very popular, and that's okay. But metal does expand and contract with temperature. And so I don't always recommend metal, down here in the valley, actually, because if it gets really hot, that metal, you can sometimes see that it'll kind of pillow up, being that it will expand. And if that metal wasn't installed properly to where it can adjust and move with the temperatures, then it'll wreck the metal.
Interesting.
So, but it's great. You see metal in a lot of high elevation places, up in Park City or ski resorts or whatever. You see a lot of metal because they heat up quickly and they shed snow really well.
Right.
So that's good for the snow load. So,
and so the whole idea that a metal roof lasts so long is it only lasts as long as it was installed properly, and maybe if it's in maybe a higher elevation or a better climate, things like that. They're not necessarily inherently better. I definitely have been guilty of being like, oh, it's got a metal roof. That thing will last forever.
It's going to last forever.
Like, but don't listen to me. I'm just a real estate agent.
Yeah, right. But you're a pretty smart realtor. I've had you on the roof before, Annie, so I'm well aware. But yeah, no, and you're right. Metal itself, like the metal panel, it's probably going to last forever. I mean, we've seen that on old barns or something that are built 150 years ago. You can still see the metal. Well, you can also see that those metal roofs aren't keeping any water out. And so, they will eventually, rust. They will eventually bend and break. They expand and contract. And over time, your screw holes are going to get bigger and bigger, and the metal's going to come off. Now, you should get you should get 50 plus years out of a metal roof regardless.
Yeah.
You won't get that much out of the paint, for example. The paint will fade, maybe scratch, maybe start to come off at, when you're into these 40, 50 year marks. But so I wouldn't, they're not a forever roof. They really just aren't.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, 50 years is pretty forever in terms of home ownership.
Yeah.
But that's pretty good. But it still is going to take maintenance, and it has to be installed properly.
Well, the way to look at it is just that. Is how long is it going to last? What do I have to do to it to make it last? And how much is my investment initially? So.
Right. And do you guys do all the roofs? Is there anything you don't do?
There's nothing that we don't do. We are capable of doing anything. There's a lot of roofs, like I said, we just don't do a lot of, frankly. But we're certainly capable of doing any of them. There are certain roofs that I'll try to probably talk you out of for the reasons that we discussed. But that doesn't mean that they're not all. They still have a place. Okay. So.
Well, I generally prefer a contractor that will talk me out of things before trying to talk me into things. So that's a good thing.
I'll let you make the decision. I just want you to be educated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's segue into kind of roof maintenance. As I'm selling homes, obviously the home inspector typically makes some sort of commentary on like the age of the roof and the life of the roof. And like I said, I've had you come out and repair little, steel this and that, replace a little bit of flashing here and there to extend the life of a roof. But in general, what are some like maintenance considerations that people should be thinking about, even if maybe they buy a house with a brand new roof? What is their general like timeline of what they should be looking for? How often they should be like poking ahead in their attic or getting up on their roof? Should they get on their roof? Should they just call you? What can you? Yeah.
Sure. No, there's not really a lot of maintenance that should be done on a roof, honestly. Now, there's a few things that I'm sure you've seen on several inspection reports that are the most common. And
Yeah.
so, for example, an asphalt shingle roof, which again is the most common roof in our area, that roof is going to have a few pieces and parts that are not going to last as long as the shingles are going to last. That's like the pipe jacks, some flashings potentially that are going to maybe pop off the walls here and there just because of years of expansion contraction. Maybe some roofers will choose to use a plastic vent, for example. I don't recommend that. We never use plastic, but some people do, and it's an approved product. And those will crack because of all the heat from years and years, and so they'll crack and potentially break or even blow off or whatever. So those are things that do happen. I always tell people right around that 15-year mark, roughly, and at that time, that's when you're going to have, you can mitigate a lot of those things, frankly, with some good roof sealant. That's something that a homeowner could probably even do themselves, honestly, if they're comfortable on a roof. There's a little bit of, understanding that would need to happen to know kind of where to put the sealant, but it's really not that difficult. And that can save you a trip charge or whatnot. Or if you're more comfortable, then we'll come do it for you for just a minimal fee, of course. It's not a lot because it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Beyond that, as far as the whole roof, there's not a lot of maintenance that can be done. There's things to look for as to when it's wearing out or when you should really be considering replacing it, or maybe how much life is left in it, of course. But general maintenance, the whole point of roofing nowadays is, just put it up there and forget it. Yep. Is most ideal, in my opinion. I don't want to think about it. So
I will say the one thing that comes up all the time in inspection reports that people typically don't keep a great eye on because they do think their roofs are sort of these impermeable things that are, capable of withstanding everything, is branches and like cords, like any sort of power line or coax cable. Yeah. And it's crazy. Like you'll have a roof that's really pretty, this already, but like sure. You'll have a roof that's pretty brand new, and just 1 year of a branch wiping across in the wind, shingles will like completely wear down those shingles. So that's what comes up all the time.
Great point, Annie, because it's a huge deal that a lot of people just look past.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an outside force that's happening on the roof, right? So yes, tree branches should never touch your shingles. They will wear it out. Within a year, you'll be done.
Yeah.
Yep, it goes really fast. And anything that's even above the roof, you have to remember as well that it's going to snow, and that snow is going to sit on your tree, and it's going to weigh down that branch that's then going to hit the roof, even though it's 3 feet above the roof in the summertime.
Yeah.
And so think about that as well. Another thing is make sure your rain gutters are cleaned out. If your rain gutters aren't cleaned out, that affects your roof because water has no place to go. And so it'll get backed up underneath your shingles, and it can cause a problem on the edge of your roof. Yeah. Power lines, different cables, anything, sometimes there will be satellite dishes where there's, cables, anything on the roof that can move in the wind or will adjust. Of course, all those outside forces will wear it out. If you're getting up on your roof every year to go watch fireworks, I don't recommend that. You're going to wear your shingles out a lot faster by doing that. You really shouldn't be up there, as very often. As little as possible, swamp cooler repair, you got to do it. You got to get on the roof to winterize or summerize your swamp cooler, for example. But, tread lightly on there so that you can get as much life as possible.
I think that's a good point. Like, I think you probably have actually repaired some of the roofs that I've had in transactions where, maybe there's a window that's like above a little spot where you can go out there and sit, and those places always get really worn down.
Always. Yeah. It's really interesting. If there's a window access on somebody's house, those shingles are always worn out. Yeah. Maybe it's because teenagers are going in and out. I don't know. But if it's easy to get out there, there's an excitement level of getting on your roof, but you will wear it out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this is kind of this is a surprise question because I didn't warn you about this question.
That's okay.
It's not crazy. But maybe we can talk about a little bit of pricing ideas for people of like, what do roofs generally cost? What does maintenance cost? Like if you did have somebody go out every, 10 years just to look at it and seal some stuff up. And obviously in this market, especially, prices change a lot. And I know that roofs, because of the price of lumber and stuff, have gone up immensely. But maybe just if there's anybody watching that's like, just kind of chewing on the home buying process, and or maybe they have a roof that's like in funky shape. Any general pricing ideas that you could give people?
Sure. So if what I've found more than anything is if somebody's curious, if they're looking at a house or you're looking to buy it or or looking, and you've been really good at this, or looking that they already live there and they're looking at the roof. If it looks a little off to you, it probably is. Generally, you kind of know what a basic roof should look like, as far as what looks healthy. And so generally speaking, if it looks off, it probably is. And so then you're looking at either repairing or replacing, just depending. But I found that most people are pretty good. As far as general, maintenance or having somebody come check it out, we would always come and look at your roof for free. We do free roof inspections if you think there's something wrong. A lot of times there may be nothing, and we say thank you and call us next year or in 5 years or whatever.
I love that about you too.
Yeah, but if there is something, of course we want to address it. And your basic repairs, your standard stuff, you're usually as little, usually a few $100s for basic stuff. Roofs, sealing things. Your standard repair is kind of what I tell people. You're usually $200 to $600. As just kind of a ballpark of your basic, roof sealing this and that, maybe fixing some flashing, maybe installing some counter flashing, maybe, your very basic stuff that'll just get you through the year or whatnot. It's usually where it falls. Obviously, if there's something that's a little bit more in depth, then you can have a little bit higher bill, obviously. But every case is unique. And then as far as replacement, most homes, as you've probably seen, I tell people the average, you're right around about $10,000 right now for your standard, maybe show your house bungalow type style.
Yeah, I was just going to say like a little bungalow.
Yeah. And that's tear off the old roof and put on a new one. But I usually tell people that's a good budget to at least get you started.
Yeah.
Obviously, everything depends on how much work is involved. That's why we do an estimate. That's why we come out and look at it, because every roof is slightly different. How many layers there are will affect the price. A lot of these older homes, we have to resheet them with new plywood. That's, thankfully lumber has come down. That was brutal about 3 months ago. That was just purchasing lumber was pushing $60 a piece, which was a lot.
Yeah,
so
that's good for me to know, because I didn't know that it had come down significantly, honestly.
Yeah.
So whereas I used to say $10,000 or $12,000, I've been being like, I don't know, like 16 or 18 maybe. So it's good for me to know that.
Well, you're
things
not necessarily wrong
on
some of those bungalows, as cute and small as those houses are, they've got a lot going on the roof.
They've got cedar shakes, 2 layers of shingles.
The cedar shakes, the extra layers, the resheeting. There's just a lot happening there. But again, it all depends on size and what's required. But lumber has come down, which is great. Now, shingles, on the other hand, of course, have not come down, or any material for that matter. Unfortunately, it's only gone up this year. All building materials have gone up. Metal is up 50, 60%. Shingles are up about 20%. And then if you want to keep good guys that are going to do good work, you got to pay them.
They've gone up too.
They've gone up too. I hate to say it, but everything has gone up. And I mean, that's, it's a little sour, unfortunately, and it's too bad. But
how big is your crew? Just kind of out of curiosity. I never asked that either.
We have several crews, and they all vary in size. Our smallest crew is 4 guys, and our largest is 8. Okay. And so, for most roofs in the summertime, when we have long days, we can generally do a whole house in about 1 day, which is great. Maybe it's 2 days, depending on the size of the home. But this time of year, where you got cold fingers and short days, they're going to take longer.
I've helped put on 1 roof in my life, and I feel like that was pretty good for me. My hamstrings were sore for about 4 days. So
you stretch them really well. Your knees are bruised, your hamstrings are tight.
It's
your hands are bleeding.
It is manual labor for sure.
It is.
Well, is there anything else that you want to add? And I can see if anybody, I don't think we've had any questions. Sometimes we'll get like live questions from people if they have like a specific roof thing. So I'll just put it out there. If anybody who's watching has any questions, go ahead. But is there anything else that you'd like to add in general?
Not specifically. One thing I would tell people, generally speaking, if your roof is wearing out, I like to tell people, I just like to remind people to not panic. Because honestly, it is your roof. Everything you own is underneath it. I get it. There's potential for major damage. No roofer out there has a crystal ball. Nobody's going to know when your roof is going to fail. So I just like to let people know, in all honesty, if somebody's coming to your house and saying you have to replace this like now, there's very few cases where that's true. It is true sometimes, but my whole thing is just don't panic. if it needs to be done, then it needs to be done, and we'll tell you that. But you can usually maybe push it a little bit longer or do some minor repairs to kind of get you through things, or whatever, to build the budget, or depending on the season, or if you've got the money, then let's do it, or whatever. But when it fails, it can be bad, but just don't panic.
Yeah.
And you'll be better off.
I love that, because definitely things come up in inspection reports, and I admit to all of my clients that I tend to be a little cavalier about things, because that's generally how I feel. I'm like,
yeah,
generally most things aren't going to cause a catastrophic loss.
Catastrophic is a great word.
If you've got a little bit of leaking from the chimney, it's not going to flood into your house and create a lake.
Right.
It's going to cause a little dampness, which we live in the desert. It's going to dry out. We're going to get a guy out there when we can, just like nerves calm. So I really love that addition, because I do think that people with roofs and foundations definitely can panic in a way that probably isn't wildly necessary most of the time.
What I would suggest that I'll bet 90% of the roofs that we replace, which is hundreds of roofs a year, have had a leak at somewhere in their roof, and we're repairing, we're replacing, we're fixing wood or whatever, but it's been a small enough leak that it's caused it's caused some damage, but it hasn't wrecked their ceiling, hasn't wrecked their floor, hasn't ruined their walls, all the things that are really catastrophic. And so it's not uncommon to have some things. It's also, if you get up in your attic, you're supposed to see light out of your roof. A lot of people don't understand that. That's a little tip. You should see daylight. You should see daylight around vents. You should see daylight around some of your flashings. That doesn't mean it's going to leak. It just means that it's vented properly. And so those things, just don't panic, and you'll be okay. And if you are concerned, call us or anybody else for that matter. Obviously, make sure that somebody you trust, somebody that you can believe in, and get you an honest answer, and then fix it, or don't if you don't have to.
I love it. Well, yeah, I really appreciate that. And having said that, if anyone watching, and then I upload this video to my Instagram, so it stays there forever. And typically it gets a lot more views like after the fact. So if anybody's watching this and they've made it all the way through, if anybody wants Devin's number, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to pass on his contact info. He's definitely one of my very favorite vendors for just the experience and honesty, and for helping out a whole bunch of my clients at this point. So, well,
thank you, Annie. I appreciate
Thank you so much for joining me.
You bet.
I appreciate all the info, and I'll pass anybody your way that reaches out. So,
thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Let me know if there's any questions.
Yeah, I will. I don't think we've got any on here, so people are probably just mostly learning right now, which is totally fine.
That's okay.
So yeah, but yeah, again, I appreciate you, and have a great rest of your evening.
Okay, you too. Thanks, Annie. Bye.
See ya.